Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar, Cycles of Success, Creating and Increasing Employee Engagement. My name is Jen, and I'm the Associate Marketing Manager for the Myers-Briggs Company. Just as a reminder, this webinar will be recorded, and we will send out a link to the recording and the slides later this week. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the questions box. And now I'll pass it on to our speaker, Marta Koonz.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. See, we still have people joining, so glad to have you here as we look at creating and increasing employee engagement. We're going to be focusing today on the talent management life cycle. We'll highlight a few areas a little bit more closely. So we will be looking at employee selection and assessment, training and development, performance management, and succession planning in particular. Now, this is just one example of a talent management life cycle. This one was created by C2 Research, but there are other models out there, but they all focus on pretty much the same thing. When we look at training and development, we're going to focus a little bit more closely on employee engagement, and under performance management, we're going to focus a bit on employee retention. So that is our plan for this webinar. To get things started, we're going to do a short poll. Right? As I said, we're going to be focusing on 4 of the 6 stages of the talent management life cycle in the model that we're using. Our question is, which stage of the employment life cycle are you most interested in? So if you could go ahead and fill out that poll for us. Love to hear what you think. Getting our numbers in. So again, we're looking at these 4 areas. Notice there, we've got the whole talent management life cycle as one of those. I think that should say, well, it's good. Whatever it says, we're good. So a little bit of a difference there, but the talent management life cycle overall, 17%, employee engagement, 46%, retention, 31%, and then succession planning, 6%. So it seems that interest really is employee engagement. Right? How do we keep folks engaged and involved? Alrighty, let's keep this going. There we go, a little bit about me. So my name is Marta Koonz. I'm principal consultant with the Myers-Briggs Company. I'm also on certification faculty for all of our assessments. We have a variety of assessments, even though we're called the Myers-Briggs Company, we have multiple assessments. This webinar isn't necessarily about assessments. I will bring them in a little bit for examples, but it's not the focus. The focus is definitely this talent management life cycle. My PhD is in depth psychology, which is kind of a fun area to have a PhD in. It is a part of psychology, but it's much more related to the humanities. And I'm also a professional certified coach, and in that piece is sort of important in terms of my use with assessments because I do bring that coaching perspective to each of the assessments I work with. So just a little bit about me, who I am. Now let's take a look at our assessments. Again, I'm just going to give you a taste of the different assessments so that throughout the webinar, I can use them as examples. We are not the only assessments in town, right? But I kind of think that we're pretty good assessments, and our assessments can definitely work together quite nicely. So when we look at our assessments, and we have 5 of them, even though we are the Myers-Briggs Company, right? Our 5 assessments are the CPI 260, the FIRO, the MBTI, the Strong Interest Inventory, and the TKI. Each one of them is designed to look at something a little bit different, a different perspective on who we are. The CPI 260 describes an individual as if they were being described by an objective and knowledgeable other. For individual use, it's a great assessment, gets used for selection, individual development, leadership development, career management, success planning. We also have our FIRO assessment that looks at our interpersonal needs for inclusion, control, infection, gets used in a variety of areas. We have the MBTI, which many people are familiar with. Right? MBTI focuses on 4 pairs of opposites. how we direct and receive energy, how we take in information, make decisions, and approach the outside world. We also have the step 2, which gives nuances for each of those 4 preference pairs. Again, used in a variety of different situations to help us with our personal awareness, personal development, and our relations with others. Strong interest inventory really looks at our work personality in 6 broad areas: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. Gets used for career exploration, but from an HR perspective, it can also be used for career engagement. And we know engagement was definitely an important piece for this group, right? So it looks at engagement, career transition, and also retirement transition. Our last assessment is the TKI. And with the TKI, we're looking at developing our awareness using these 5 conflict modes, right? We have these 5 conflict modes: competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, and accommodating. Right? What's your way of interfacing with conflict? Again, used in a variety of different areas, both for an individual and for a team that's working together. So there are 5 assessments, just to give you a little bit of an idea. Again, there's other assessments out there that apply and can be used within the talent management lifecycle. So let's dig into this cycle just a bit. Again, the model we're using is from C2 Research, and this model has 6 stages that we look at. Talent acquisition and recruitment, which if I had to sum that up in one word would be attract. Second phase at employee selection and assessment, right? That's at hire. Onboarding, where we introduce both to maybe others that they're working with and the organization itself. Training and development, so that engage comes in. Performance management, how we develop our employees, our talent, and then succession planning, which is all about how we prepare them for future roles. Right? So we have attract, hire, introduce, engage, develop, and prepare, to sort of summarize the 6 stages of the talent management life cycle using this model. So one thing we want to keep in mind as we're considering employee engagement, retention, this talent management life cycle, is that the career path model of 30 years ago is very different from what people expect today. Right? Before, sometimes people would stay in their job for an entire career. Oh, you heard very often, I'm retiring from this company. Right? Now, people tend to be looking for more movement. They're looking for opportunities. They want to grow. They want to develop. Right? We've seen this move, especially in the past couple of years, of moving from being in that traditional office setting to working in a hybrid environment or working from home. Right? One of the things that's happened over the last few years is people have come to expect a higher degree of flexibility. Where before they maybe didn't have as much, they went into the office, came home. Now there's lots of different ways that people can work. So it's very different than the model that we had 30 years ago. So when we look at that, for employees, wow, that means they're looking for a variety of careers. Right? There tends to be a thread that runs through them, but they might want to move around a little bit and not just get in one position and stay in that position. Now, those careers may be within the same organization, but again, very often they're looking to grow and develop to have that flexibility. For our employers, now we need to respond to that, right? We need to look at how we can meet and develop people where they're at, right? So that they can be in that employee life cycle in a way that is engaging for them. Right? So things have definitely shifted to where we are now looking at this talent management life cycle. We're going to focus, as I mentioned earlier, on 4 of these areas. Right? We're going to look at how we hire, how we engage, how we develop, and how we prepare both our employees, but also our organization, how we set both of those areas up for success. So let's start with this second piece, selection and assessment, right? That hiring piece. We're looking at hiring, right? So chief concerns of HR people today, What are we looking at? Well, matching candidates to jobs based on their ability to handle job-specific challenges they're likely to face, right? We want to make sure we have that match. Are we getting the right person in the position that we're looking to fill? Part of that is also finding out, well, what are our candidates looking for, right? Maybe they are looking for that ongoing investment in their professional development, more so maybe than in previous decades, right? People want to grow and develop, but they also, if we look at this last piece, they want to give back. What are the opportunities we provide for them, excuse me, to give back? This is that second step, that how do we hire? Now let's look at a statistic here. 83% of HR professionals had trouble recruiting suitable candidates in the past 12 months. So this is 2019, not a 2023 data, but still fairly relevant. 83% had trouble recruiting. And this is from SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management. We'll send you the information, the link, so that you can go ahead and download this document and have access to it. All the different studies, research studies that are part of this webinar. So why are we having trouble hiring suitable candidates? Right? We look, there's a variety of reasons here. Right? Competition from other employers, yeah, that's always going to be there, 43%. Candidates do not have the needed work experience, they don't have the right technical skills, low number of applicants or lack of interest in the organization, salaries and benefits that are not competitive, candidates don't have the right workplace or soft skills. So let's look at a few of these. In particular, let's talk about competition from other employers and a low number of applicants or lack of interest in the organization. And this comes in very often when we look at our brand. 50% of candidates said they wouldn't work for a company with a bad brand reputation, even for a pay increase. Right? Our brand really matters. Who we are, what we stand for, what message we put out. 50% of our candidates, what would it be like if in our hiring, all of a sudden we only had half as many people interested in working for us? And guess what? That's the truth right now, because 50% of our candidates are looking at our reputation. And if we don't have a positive reputation, a positive brand reputation, people aren't going to apply. So what do we do? How do we pay attention to our branding? First is create a positive company culture, right? Our employees can be a great source of finding new employees that match who we are and what we stand for. So really having that positive company culture goes a long way. Provide a positive candidate experience. I was working with somebody recently who told me they had been in an interview position. They had actually gone through 3 interviews. They were on the 3rd interview. It was a half-day interview. And then nothing. They never heard back from the company. After the company had invested 3 interviews in them, including a half-day interview, not another word, not a follow-up email, not a thanks but no thanks, nothing. That impacted not only that candidate, but also every person that that candidate then spoke to about their experience with that company. That positive candidate experience, even if we're not hiring them, matters. We also want to establish a good reputation based on the services and products we provide, right? What do we offer, right? Do people see them as a value add, right? Do we provide them in a way that wants people to come back and work with us again? Now, there's lots of information we can look at. This is from an article from Recruiter. We'll send you that link, but paying attention to how we show up in the world matters. You know, the Myers-Briggs Company is a B Corp. I had somebody I worked with recently who said, wow, one of the reasons I'm excited about working with this company is that you're a B Corp. Branding matters. Let's revisit this list of the reasons we're struggling to find suitable candidates, and let's look at another thread. So the people that we are looking to hire, maybe they don't have the work experience, they don't have the technical skills, they don't have those workplace skills. I think this all ties into what's the focus of our hiring? Is it recruitment or talent acquisition? Now, both are important, but they're different. Right? So when we're recruiting, are we recruiting or looking to acquire talent? So recruitment, reactive, trying to fill a position. Right? Oh, we have an open position. Let's go ahead and hire for that. Talent acquisition looks a little bit further out. We maybe have tougher positions that might open up in the future. We want to get qualified people into our system, so when those tougher positions open up, we have somebody who's trained and ready to fill that position. Now let's take a brief look at assessments that might be a good fit for hiring. You'll notice I've sort of blanked out everything but one assessment, because not all assessments are designed for use in selection. In fact, all those other assessments of ours that are blanked out a little bit, nope, you don't want to use those for hiring. CPI 260 assessment, it's a great fit for hiring. Right? So what's one option that you could utilize? Right? Describes an individual as if they were being described by an objective and knowledgeable other. It's designed to be used for selection. Now, it's not only used for selection, but it's an option. So if you did want to use an assessment, you want to make sure it is designed for use in selection. It's an important piece to consider when you're using an assessment for that hiring. All right. Let's move on to training and development. Right? This is that fourth step in this talent management life cycle, training and development. So a quote here, well-designed performance management and development framework recognizes and rewards outstanding performance, sets clear expectations and goals, enables employees to receive training and development. Here we move into how do we engage people? We've got them in our system. Now, how do we engage them so they want to stay with us? At different stages in our career, we're likely looking for different things. Right? As we start up, we're looking for mentorship. We want to look at different projects, get exposed to different areas potentially. Right? We want to be challenged. Gone is the day where somebody gets hired and wants to stay doing exactly the same thing. And early in the career is a great time to be exposed to different and challenging projects and activities. Right? Having a mentor who can guide us through that process. Now, once we've been there for a while, right, we want to stay engaged in our development. That's going to change as we move, right? Somebody who's been there for 6 months, it's going to be different than they're there for 2 years, then 5 years, or maybe even 10 years. Right? But our employees want to be engaged in their development. They want to have a voice. They want to continue to grow and gain new skills. Right? They want to be challenged. Being challenged is a big part of engagement. We want to find out for that individual, what are they looking for? Some individuals, right, want to expand beyond their current role. Some want to stay in that role, but learn how to do it better. Right? Others are using that role maybe as a stepping stone, and we want that stepping stone to be within our organization. We want to provide them with opportunities to grow professionally. Because the ideal match is we're recognizing our employees' needs, but we're also meeting our own objectives for our organization. And that's very possible. Right? And that's what engagement is all about. Right? Meeting employees' needs while also meeting the needs of our business. So how do we do that? How do we engage employees? How do we keep them interested? How do we keep them wanting to contribute, right? To grow, to develop? One way to do that, helping employees to find meaning in the workplace, because they're looking for meaning. Right? They want to have that purpose. So here's a few things that you can do. First, identify some current employees who you feel are truly engaged and talk to them, right? Find out why they came to the company and why are they still there, right? If you have an employee who really is contributing and is part of your process and they've been there for a long time, ask them why, right? Don't be afraid to engage in conversation. Collect that data up. Share it with employees, share it with managers, have those conversations, right? Ask people to contribute. If they're with you for a reason. That's a strength that you can build on. See if you can look at, characterizing the relationship between the level of meaningfulness in your employees' work and employee engagement, right? Is there a connection? Are people saying, wow, I find the work that I do very fulfilling. It's meaningful for me, right? Is that part of the engagement for them? Ask them specifically, well, what do you find meaningful in your work? Because meaning is really important. People look for meaning and purpose. They want to know why the work they do matters. And so if we can help them find that connection between the work that they do and a contribution they're making, right, to society, to other businesses you work with, to your clients, that's going to matter. So again, when we're looking for engagement, there are some of the assessments that can help us to do that. CPI 260, but it's possible to use that one, but our other assessments, right, help grow and develop our employees. It keeps them engaged, right? Our FIRO assessment can help us look at our interpersonal needs, can increase my engagement, right? Training and development, training in how I interact with other people. Our MBTI assessment helps us look at, well, who am I as a person, right? How does that impact my day-to-day life within the organization? Strong interest inventory, checking to see if my work personality is a match for the work I'm doing, and how sometimes, my investigative work personality, that's why I'm really engaged in doing the work that I'm doing. Right? Sometimes it helps us look at maybe what's other work in the organization I could be doing that's a better fit. Right? Our TKI. Right? So there's different assessments we can use at different stage to help our employees grow, develop, and be engaged with the work that we do. In particular, I would say for the MBTI, the step 1, this would be where we would start. I'd hold on to the step 2 till a little bit later, right? Just looking at those basics, preference pairs. All right, let's look at this 5th stage, performance management. And remember, performance management, right, is about helping our employees develop. We look at employees and their developmental needs, growth goals, right? We're helping them figure out, well, how do they get those needs met? Right? We want to keep people challenged. We want to keep them growing. We want to keep them engaged. We want to help them to develop. Sometimes we do our training and development in the beginning and we say, great, we've got you onboarded. We've given you all your training. We've got that initial rush of helping you develop. And then we pull back and nothing, right? You're with us now, great, you're part of the team. No, we want to keep developing. We want to keep providing opportunities for our employees to be challenged, to be growing, to be engaged. It's so, so important if we want to keep people around. We want to maximize those opportunities for our employees, especially if we want them to stay around for a while. All of our employees have goals, right? They're long-term career goals. We'd like them to align with what we have to offer within our organization, right? We want to retain them. That's a big focus because we know employee engagement isn't about just meeting the day-to-day needs. It's also about long-term needs, right? It's not, okay, great, you're engaged. I can check that off the list. Retention says, no, you're engaged now and you're engaged in 6 months and 6 years, right? You're staying with us because we're continuing to provide you with opportunities to develop. We know, right? There's research that tells us employees that are highly engaged are much more likely to stay with the organization, to stay with the company. Right? Think about that. If we're engaged because our organization is offering opportunities to us, it makes sense that, oh, you notice me. I'm not just a cog in the wheel. I'm being invested in, right? You believe in me as an individual. It helps me to believe in the organization, right? To want to stay with that organization and not look elsewhere. So what are some of the things that we can do to retain employees? Well, yeah, money's always nice, right? We all know that. If we can pay the salaries, that's going to be one of those things that we can do. But look at all these other pieces that are important, right? Having that culture which encourages people to share, right? To speak what's on their mind, to not just say, oh, I don't agree with that behind the scenes, but to speak up and say, well, why are we doing this? Is this really in the best interest of our clients? How might that look, right? Create a safe culture, a safe space for people to speak their minds. Show appreciation and respect. And that doesn't have to be, it's great if we get a 20% bonus. It can be something as big as that. But maybe it's just a little gift card or a handwritten note or just something where we say, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate how much you give to this organization, how you go above and beyond. Right? Recognizing the skill set that they bring and letting them know that. Encouraging input and feedback. Right? Keep them in that loop where if they're engaged in a process or a product development, they have an opportunity to share how they feel about that. What are their ideas for improvement? We also know about that micromanaging, right? Micromanaging can get in the way for sure, right? Let's give those goals, but let's then step back and give them that power, that autonomy to figure out how to get to that end results, right? Having autonomy goes a long way towards people being engaged. And what about those high performers, right? We want to keep them engaged and involved. We need to invest in them. First, we need to pay attention, right? So identify who is really engaged, who's really giving, who's really a part of our company culture, and how do we reward that? How do we invest in them so that they know we notice you, we appreciate you, and we want to invest in your development? Because if we don't do that, they're going to look for another company that will. Offer folks that ability to grow and develop. What are the training programs that we can offer? What are those outside opportunities? What are the professional development opportunities that we can provide for our employees? Again, people want to grow and develop. They want to give. Right? One of the great things we do at the Myers-Briggs Company, I think, is we provide volunteer hours. Right? So every employee can do time giving to the community. Right? And very often, that's tied with that ability to grow and to stretch. And then this last one, that providing flexibility, that one really has come to the forefront in the last couple of years. Right? People have come to expect that. The things that we've noticed is, working from home, hybrid workplace, it allows us that level of flexibility, that works around these other obligations and responsibilities we have in our life. And people have come to very much appreciate that flexibility. Right? So maybe my job used to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but now I can work in the evening, or I can do some work on the weekends if I've got this big event with my family. People are looking for that flexibility. So as much as possible, how do we build that in? Again, when we're looking at retaining employees, about developing them, assessments are a great way to do that, right? We look at leadership development, personal development, CPI 260, MBTI, strong interest inventory. Right? Those are some of the assessments we can use to keep our employees engaged to help them transition on within our organization, to help them develop maybe from the position they're in now to a leadership position. How do we develop our employees and show them that we're interested in keeping them around? Right? We're invested in them and want them to be a part of our company for many years to come. Here's where I would say that step 2 for the MBTI can come in, because it starts to give us some nuanced information. This is, when we're looking at using the assessments in this phase, it really is about diving deeper, right? Really getting into some of those details of what's really going to help you improve and develop and grow into that next position, right? Into that next phase of maybe even that same position, but taking on a deeper role. And finally, let's move on to succession planning. People are looking to grow their career, right? They're looking at what's coming next. We want to prepare people to stay in our organization. Because some people, again, they do like that. This is my role. I love doing it. I want to expand into that role. But other people are looking for what comes next. Where can I learn more? Where can I push myself? That's what we're looking at here as we're preparing individuals for what comes next. Now, when we're looking at succession planning, it's kind of interesting. We want to have this in mind, right? 2 different directions, choosing by position or by person, right? So if we're choosing by position, there are some roles within an organization that are just good training ground, right? They set people up for success in a future role, right? So we know if we hire somebody for this position, then they're going to be prepared to move on to that next position. That's hiring, choosing by position. If we're choosing by person, we're looking at an individual and the skills that they have, not necessarily lining them up for the next position, because the position they're in now sets them up to move to that, but because we're developing up their skills that they have, so they'll be valuable maybe in a number of positions. Either way, we're looking towards the future, right? Keeping talent in the pipeline. We want them to stay with us. Either way, it's about choosing the right person. So we want to choose wisely, right? We want to choose somebody who's comfortable with change, who's interested in learning new skills. Right? If there isn't that interest, then why, right? So we want to make sure the person we choose, we have chosen wisely with, that they're accepting of uncertainty, right? We don't know what's going to happen next, and we want people who are able to respond to that they're adaptable. They can work with different people in different environments, right? We want to choose people who want to stay in the pipeline, but who also have that flexibility and can work with us and are comfortable for what might come next. The other thing we want to think about here is that succession planning is different from what we call career pathing. Not that one's better than the other, they're just different. So when we're looking at succession planning, we're equipping people. We want to give them the skills they're going to need to prepare for what might come next. And sometimes it is, I've hired somebody for this position, so they'll grow into this position. Sometimes it's, I've hired this person because they have the adaptability and the flexibility and the skills, and it might go in this direction or this direction or this direction. A little bit different than the fast tracking, which just says, okay, I'm hiring you for this, then you're automatically going here, then you're automatically going here, right? Where there's this very clear path from A to B to C. Both totally appropriate. We want to have both opportunities within our organization, but they are a little different. So when we're looking at assessments for succession planning, there's a couple different ones. If we look at ones that we offer that we can utilize, CPI 260 is great for that. Helps us really look at our skills in dealing with other people and managing ourselves. Strong interest inventory is a great one to use in this area because it's looking at our work personality and how do we develop and grow that. Again, other assessments out there, but at each stage in the talent management life cycle, we can consider using assessments, right? But never in isolation. It's never take this assessment, ooh, look at the results, this person should be moved along in this area. Assessment should always be used in conjunction with, coaching, with talking with that person, to bringing in other information we know about them. It's always a piece of the puzzle, but it can help us to have better conversations. That's one thing to keep in mind whenever we're using an assessment. It doesn't have to be one of ours, any assessment. It's not designed to give us answers. It's designed to help us ask better questions, to add to the conversation. So at each stage, we're looking at, well, which assessment helps add to the conversation? All right, so those are our stages in the talent management life cycle. We dug into 4 of them a little bit more deeply. Right? Now, you may have a different talent management life cycle that you utilize, that you're familiar with. The steps might look similar, it might look a little different. It's all good. The idea is we just want to be intentional about whatever steps we're using. Are we missing everything? Is everything in the right order? Are we paying attention to all the details? In that first step, acquisition and recruitment, we didn't focus too much on that, but how do we get the right people looking at us, right? Employee selection and assessment, that hiring phase, right? What are the important aspects of connecting the right individuals with our organization? Onboarding is going to be very specific to your organization, right? How do we introduce them to who we are, what we're all about, and maybe those foundational pieces that they need? And then once we have somebody established, that training and development, engaging them, right, in the work that they're doing in our organization, right, keeping things interesting for them, helping them to grow and develop. And that leads into a deeper development with performance management, right? What are the skills our individuals need to fill the jobs that we have, or maybe to, grow to additional jobs, which leads into that preparing, right? Succession planning, both for our organization and for the individuals within it. So we've looked at these different steps in the talent management life cycle. So we've explored them. Question is now, which one are you most interested in improving for your team or organization? So we're going to do another poll here. We started off to see what our interest was. Now we're looking at, well, which one are you most excited about to start growing in your organization? Some shifts here, and again, the poll slightly differs from what's on the slide, but still good information. Alrighty, 32, 32, and 22. So we've seen a little bit of a shift here. So if we look at the before and after, talent management life cycle is about the same. Training and development went from 46 to 32, but we see in 31 to 32, employee retention stayed about the same. Succession planning went from 6 to 22. Right, so it sounds that idea of, oh, wait a minute, we've got people, we want to keep them and prepare them for what comes next, has risen a little bit more to the forefront. So we do have I mentioned our assessments, and after we do a question and answer, if people want a little bit more information about the assessments, I can provide that. But this isn't really about pushing assessments, right? There are certification and training options. Feel free to contact us about that. We are going to send you our talent management lifecycle PDF, so you can download that and have that as an option. We'll send you a PDF of the PowerPoint, so you can click on the hyperlinks within that. Right? So we want to make sure we give you what you might need to explore a little bit further. So to keep that going right now, what questions do you have? Jen, you were sort of monitoring that for us. Love to hear what we might have.
Yes. Okay. So the first question that we have, I'm interested in getting METI certified, but how do I get buy-in from C-suite?
Yeah, that can be a tough one, getting people. So whether it be the MBTI or the CPI or any of the assessments, right? If you don't have buy-in, it's really tough to have the C-suite give you that funding to make that happen. So how do we get buy-in? Well, I think one of the ways we do that is to show that it's going to make a difference, right? Just to see that, wow, if you do invest in my getting certified, this is how I can leverage this to, maybe it is engagement, maybe it is retention. What's important to the C-suite, right? What's that return on investment going to be? Is it succession planning? Are people leaving the company? And we want to show how we can use this assessment, right, to keep people around, because they see how they're being invested in, how employees then see that they matter to us, right? So I think figuring out what's that pain point, what's the challenge maybe that our organization is facing, and then how does this assessment help respond to that? How will it help make a difference in whatever that pain point is, whether it is, we're losing people, we're hiring them, we're investing good money in them, and then they're leaving, or is it that people are still doing their jobs, but they're sort of just, doing what they need to do and they're not really engaged, right? Find out what that challenge is that we're facing, and then show how the assessment matches. And we do want to make sure we're choosing the right assessment, not the one that's, it's the flavor of the month, so we should get certified in that, but is this the assessment that matches the challenge that we're facing, and what's the difference it's going to make? Great question.
Another question that came in, as a people manager, I'm having trouble keeping my more senior employees engaged and motivated. Which assessment should I look into, and how do I get that conversation started?
Which assessment? So actually, let me, just so we have a visual, we're going to come back to the thank you slide. So if I'm looking at our assessments and we have senior employees that we want to keep engaged, I mean, I'm a big fan in terms of leadership development, looking at the CPI 260. But when I'm working with an assessment, it's always who am I working with, why am I working with them? So if I'm looking to develop my leaders and I want to give them a really deep dive, it might be I want to look at the CPI 260. Maybe I want to help my leaders develop, and the challenge that I'm facing with them is that they're bumping up against people on their team, right? In which case I would probably bring the FIRO assessment in. So I'd want to pinpoint exactly why am I seeing challenges, and what's the area I want to develop within them. And then I would know which assessment is really going to do that. I'll probably lean towards that CPI 260 again if I didn't have more information, but I would love to get a little bit more. And then I might say one of the other assessments might be a better match. It's always about, again, who am I working with and why am I working with them? What's the goal? And that helps me to figure out which assessment is the best fit for that.
Thanks, Marta. Another question that came in, do you find that an external recruiter works better in hiring talent for a specific position rather than using internal recruiters? I ask because our internal recruiters seem to be disconnected from salary, skills, etc., in a department that is considered a center of expertise.
So I will say that particular question isn't necessarily my expertise area. That being said, I've seen success both with internal and external. So I think you can find success either way. It's just that recruitment team really having the ability and the space to really create that plan. But again, not a question that I feel that I can really answer on a deep level. What else do we have?
Let's see. Another question came in asking specifically about the FIRO assessment.
Mhm.
How can you explain more about how the FIRO assessment can help manage conflict and help teams communicate more around conflict?
Sure. So the FIRO assessment looks at our interpersonal needs, as it says here, inclusion, control, and affection. And I'm going to go back and forth a little bit on slides here just because I'm a big believer in a visual. So I want to stay on that FIRO slide just so people can see this, right? So inclusion, control, and affection are interpersonal needs. So inclusion, how much do we want to include other people in our life, right? How much do we seek that connection in terms of groups, right? And now each of these need areas can be expressed or wanted, right? Expressed inclusion, how much do I invite other people? Wanted inclusion, how much do I want to be invited? You know, controls about influence and responsibility. Do I want others to provide me with structure and organization? Do I want to provide that for other people? Do I want to influence? And affection is more about those one-on-one connections. Do I want to have one-on-one connections, an open and warm connection with others, right? Do I try and do that and for other people? Do I want other people to do that? This is one of the assessments. It was designed in particular for teams that were in high stress situations. And how compatible are we, right? Especially in terms of what I want and what you give. And from this research, we know that number one piece that helped those high pressure teams to be effective was how well we did at connecting those interpersonal needs, about how much the team was able to understand and flex into giving other team members what they wanted to be set up for success, right? And then my getting what I needed from others on the team to be set up for success. And so for an example, if I have the team, say I'm the team leader and I have high expressed affection, but I have a team that just doesn't need me to reach out so much, there might be a disconnect there. Same might hold true if I have low expressed affection, but my team really wants me to reach out to them and recognize, them as individuals, there might be a disconnect there. So the FIRO is really, in terms of interpersonal needs and improving our ability to connect, whether it be two people or a team of people, the FIRO definitely is the tool that I would explore.
Thanks, Marta. All right, it looks like that's all the questions we have time for today. If we didn't get the chance to answer your question, we'll be sure to get back to you later this week. Marta, was there any final words that you wanted to say before we log off?
I don't think so. Again, we'll be sending you some resources to follow up on this. We're always available to answer questions that may come up at a later date, so feel free to reach out to us, and we'll do whatever we can to answer those questions that do come up. Thanks you
Awesome.
for your time and attention.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.